Well, it's always dangerous to invite people to your workplace who are better at your job than you are. But that's what I've decided to do by reaching out to the Maine Wire and John Featherstone. The problem is that in order to get him, I had to cut a deal with Tom Shattuck. So for those of you who are WTKK listeners, you remember the great and powerful Tom. He has somehow conned the people of the Maine Wire into giving him. What do you do? Like bring coffee or something, Shattuck? Or
I am an official parasite of the organization, as I've been for many organizations. We'll see if I can take this one down like I did the others.
That was your job description at TKK. It's absolutely amazing. And John Featherstone, we were honored to have you as a listener at TKK back in the day, and you fed us a lot of great stuff at the time.
I miss those days, if I'm going to be honest, Michael. Yeah, those were the great days of Boston radio. Yeah,
it'll never happen again. We all have to move on. But now we have this new level of trouble that we get to cause, and you guys are definitely doing it at the Maine Wire. So here's what I want you to do. Obviously, the topic is the incumbent Democrat governor of a state was just shoved out of her race for U.S. Senate by some fake oyster farmer guy no one ever heard of 6 months ago who literally has a Nazi tattoo. Do I have that story right?
That's 100% accurate, Michael. 100% accurate.
Well, fill us in on the details.
Bernie Sanders quite obviously held auditions, much like he did for AOC. When AOC came on the scene, Bernie Sanders must have put out an ad and said, "Hey, send me 10 actors who can read a script and stay on script." And Graham Platner was probably the one who auditioned best because that's what Platner is. He'll tell you that he's an oyster farmer.
Right.
The Maine Wire and our investigation arm will tell you that he does grow oysters for his mother's restaurant and nobody else. So it's more of a hobby than a business.
Wait. So this is like So this is like when I was a kid and my dad. We had a garden in the backyard that he made me take care of, so we could brag about his, carrots and his, tomatoes. That would be like me calling myself a farmer. Same thing.
Yeah, you're a farmer. Absolutely. Right. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Michael. I mean, come on. So he's a fake oyster farmer. He has about a 10-year undescribed area of his life from his mid-30s until his early 40s where he would say horrible things on Reddit that would have canceled any candidate, 5-10 years ago.
Right.
Black people don't tip, cops are bad, rural Mainers are stupid, women deserve to get raped because they drink too much, horrible things. But all that said, Michael, up until yesterday, I had a really good relationship with him because I went up to him, and as you know me, I'm pretty direct. I went up to him at one of the campaign events and said, "Hey, listen, you and I don't agree politically on stuff, but I will cover you fairly." And I said, and the reason I went up to him, I said, "I like what you said during your speech is that if you're going to be successful in the United States Senate, you're going to have to talk to people who you don't agree with and that they don't agree with you." So I really complimented him on it. We actually shook hands, and he actually gave me like a man hug.
Oh,
and said,
the shug. Really great. I like that.
Yeah. So, it was really good. And then, as Tom can attest, yesterday there was 4 shootings in the city of Lewiston, and Lewiston has become, unfortunately, well known for their shootings. The mayor of Lewiston and Platner are walking down the street. And I asked for a comment, a simple political softball question. Hey, do you have any comments on gun violence in Lewiston? They both blew me off. I mean, both blew me off. So the candidate that was running against an incumbent governor who was, man of the people, accessible, now, less than 24 hours after he's the only candidate in the race and is posted online, we're going to burn it all down. We're going to destroy it all. He's gone into that campaign mode. And, it's rather disappointing.
Yeah. So, Tom Shattuck, what do people who are not in Maine need to know about Graham Platner?
Well, John kind of said it right there that he is an actor. I bought the whole thing. I looked him up on YouTube and I saw these oyster seminars and oyster, endeavors and all these little oyster fishing trips he was going on with doting interviewers. And I thought, wow, this guy's the real thing. And I actually learned a little something about oysters, but it's all fake. He's totally manufactured. Everything's been scrubbed. The only thing they didn't scrub, because he had a lot of late nights with some cups, is they didn't scrub his Reddit. And that was the entryway into, some of the guy's real thoughts. And he's got some real thoughts. I got to tell you this, that I think the campaign in the inner core of his campaign, I think they're shocked that they got through this thing. It's like people. It's like people off the coast of Maine in 1942 in a U-boat, surviving a depth charge attack. I think that they're on silent run. They can't believe they got through it. Janet Mills put out a great TV buy that included rape victims talking about how insensitive he was. He actually hired a voice actor to do his voice. Right. To say, if you don't want to get raped, you shouldn't get so drunk. It was like amazing. It was a filthy, dirty hit on him, but it should have taken. Nothing at all took. Not race, not rape. He disparaged Jesus Christ. Like, this guy ran the gamut. But I think that they found, wow, we can find the oasis is that this guy's going to yell at Donald Trump. And that's the reduction of the whole thing.
Right. Look, Trump is all, I keep trying to tell people, ignore everything else. It is all about Trump, hate, not hate. But on the side, the sideboard beside the huge Trump hatred, John Featherstone, is the fact that he was in a primary against a human being, Janet Mills, who was running to be the oldest, setting aside the conspiracy theory that she's actually a product of Disney animatronics. We'll set that aside for a minute. She was going to be the oldest freshman U.S. senator in history. So once again, for people who aren't in Maine, how did voters view Janet Mills? I mean, her polling as a governor was decent. Certainly, it wasn't like she was down in the dumps like that Connecticut guy, I forget his name. She was in the kind of the middle of the pack. Tell me about Janet Mills.
Janet Mills' first 4 years as governor, because she served 2 terms, a total of 8 years. The first 4 years of governor, she was probably a moderate Democrat, especially, in the Northeast, as I call the evil axis. She was a middle of the road Democrat, your grandfather's Democrat. She was, and then in the last 4 years, she went totally to the left side, green energy initiatives, which drove up everybody's electric bills here. Maine has the highest electricity rates in the country, and Maine is the poorest state in the country. She had her, meltdown with President Trump, and she put, she wants boys and girls locker rooms. She allowed Maine Care, which is Medicare fraud, to go rampant. Minnesota gets the headlines. Right. Wait till the feds get to Maine. When they figure out what's going in Maine, and I'm hearing that it's any day now that, the feds are coming to Maine and there's going to be people in handcuffs. It is rampant here, Michael. I don't know if you've seen the videos of myself and Steve going into these, vacant office buildings, 15, 20 different, businesses. None of them really exist, but they're all billing the state of Maine millions of dollars. It's all fraud. Maine has this ridiculous program where they pay first and chase later. So you can run it. I always kid with Tom, let's open up burn barrel home health care up here in Maine. We could get away with it for 2 years and then, nobody would find us. We'll be in the Bahamas or something, before they figure out we're doing something wrong. So she really ruined her political career because she went so far left that, Maine has its pockets, but Maine is basically working class people. It's rural. And then you have the coast where, all the rich people live that never really are from Maine anyway. So she really lost Maine because the people who can afford to live here, they can afford to live here and live in their beautiful homes on the coast. The people who can't afford to live here, they now have handcuffs on because they can't save enough money to leave, but they still can't afford to live here. So she became increasingly unpopular. And as she's gotten older, my wife says it about me. I'm becoming a cranky old man too. She became unlikably, even personally. Yeah. So she was just very unpopular. And this new shiny toy came along in Platner, and they said, hey, this is the woke progressive guy. I still think it's a 15 minutes of fame. He's going to flame out because something's coming on him still, too.
Well, wait. Well, let's hold there. I want to go back. Shattuck gave us a lot to talk about. First of all, everybody at NHJournal, definitely check out the Maine Wire and their coverage of the fraud issues related to Medicaid. Absolutely worth your time. But Shattuck, he mentioned age, and I just wonder how much that played into things. One of the reasons Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who's as popular as anybody in New Hampshire, is not running for another term. Has nothing to do with her not wanting to stay in the Senate. She loves being in the Senate. She loves being somebody in the Senate. There's a theoretical chance she could be in the majority if she stayed in the Senate, but she was going to have to explain, why are we voting for someone who's going to be, I think, 85 at the end of your next term? And she saw the writing on the wall that after Joe Biden, age was a different issue. Did the age issue impact Janet Mills in Maine?
Absolutely. Not only did it impact her, but it certainly helped Graham Platner. When you and I were doing radio in Boston, 15 years ago or so, a gentleman named David Axelrod came to town with a brand new candidate named Deval Patrick. And if you heard Axelrod talk about him in intimate circles, he said Deval is the perfect candidate because he can speak well, he's intelligent, he's young, and he looks like change. He looks like change. He was the first black governor. And that's what Platner is Platner looks like change, certainly compared to Janet Mills. And he doesn't own any of the baggage John was just talking about. None of the Medicaid fraud, none of the housing prices, none of the of the crime, none of the fact that Maine is in the bottom 5 for education. Platner might have been getting Nazi tattoos 10 years ago, but he was not ruining the state. So I think in a way it absolves Maine Democrats from being a participant in this huge Medicaid fraud, which is going to kill the state because the Trump administration is clawing back money from Minnesota, and they're definitely going to do it to Maine. So yes, I think her age, she embodied, and she was lame, and I don't know what it is, and you've got this in New Hampshire too. It's like when these 80-year-olds have 21-year-olds having them do Instagram reels, it's always terrible.
It's terrible. Just be yourself. Be your authentic self. I mean, come on. I mean, and by the way, John Featherstone, when you say that Janet Mills was part of your grandpa's Democratic Party, well, because she probably dated your grandpa, because she's in that demographic. She's out of the loop. So I agree with you completely. So this is what I cannot figure out. Maine and New Hampshire are very similar. The two of the oldest states for average age. The per capita income is lower in Maine, but it's not wildly lower. The percentage of people who go to college in the same ballpark, obviously geographically very close. And yet, oh my gosh, I mean, just look at the huge divide between the two states. Why is that, John Featherstone? Why do you think it is that Maine and New Hampshire are so different? One has literally no income tax, no sales tax. The size of government shrinking. It's hiring fewer people. Maine is, you guys just added more income taxes. You're going to give away free community college. Just show up and you get free stuff. New Hampshire, there's not even a whiff of Medicaid, fraud issues. In fact, what's hilarious is one of the Democrats is attacking Republicans in New Hampshire because they support Johnny Sununu supports work requirements for able-bodied adults who want Medicaid. And the Democrat, oh my gosh, what a terrible thing. I'm like, wow. You're crazy, man. We love that in New Hampshire. People, it polls at like 60-40. So you guys have Medicaid fraud. We have Medicaid work requirements. Why the difference?
Michael, a lot has changed, and a lot of it's COVID related. And you have to understand the front runner for governor on the Democrat side here in Maine is Dr. Shaw, who was the CDC director for the state of Maine during COVID. So what COVID really did is so many people left New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and they all came up and they spent their money to live up on the coast of Maine. And Maine went from probably a purple state to now a very blue state with a lot of liberal money, a lot of liberal agendas. Liberal money flowed into Maine during COVID. This guy, Dr. Shaw, I think did a horrible job up here in Maine. And, his whole mantra is, defeat Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a bad guy. Well, Donald Trump didn't raise your electric prices. Donald Trump didn't ruin your schools, but it's all Donald Trump's fault up here. Sure. So the liberal rich money from New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts all moved up here. And because the population in Maine, Maine is a huge state, but there's only 1.4 million people who live here. So when 20,000 rich liberals move here, you can change the dynamics of politics in an instant, and like in 5 years. And you're seeing that from COVID. It's really, really changed. It's gone woke. And rural Mainers, they're working 2-3 jobs just to pay the bills and keep the lights on. They don't have time to get involved and pay attention. And money talks. The rest walks. So
sure.
In New Hampshire was smart, by the way, to only have about 15 miles of coastline. You can only attract so many a-hole academic elites that way. And they've got Lake Winnipesaukee, but you've also got Bike Week. So
we love that. We love Bike Week. Absolutely.
I'm all for it, but I think it scares away a lot of the Harvard crowd.
No, it's great. No, one week you've got Mitt Romney and his crew all sampling their Chablis, and the next week you got bikes rolling through Laconia with people with 6 packs of PBR strapped to their back. It's great. Both states about 1.4 million people, and yet Tom Shattuck very different. Why?
I think that COVID has a lot to do with it. Maine also had an influx of immigration, including from Somalia. These people went right into the entitlement programs. The entitlements they just started handing out money when COVID hit, and they've never stopped. And I don't know how much it exploded, but you can see some of these Medicaid payouts have jumped 180%, 220% over the past 4 years. For now these shell companies, and there's no enforcement on these companies, so you're getting all this federal money coming in, and I think they just drown the place in entitlements. And everybody is every bit of bad behavior in Maine is encouraged, including drug use. If you go to Portland, Maine, and you say you need a needle, you get 100 at a time. You get 100 syringes at a time to make sure that you can string along your addiction until you're in a coffin for 6 more months, another year. And it's just been the degradation. It is the experiment. The progressive experiment is being laid out in Maine perfectly. It's also, by the way, New Hampshire, it's also happening in Vermont now, too, and that's going to be in the news a little bit more. New Hampshire is alone in its sanity.
It's pretty wild. I will tell you to look around at Massachusetts. Let's raise taxes right now. Maine, let's raise taxes right now. Vermont, same thing. And then in New Hampshire, they are fighting tooth and nail to not raise any taxes. They're trying to cut business enterprise taxes even more. And so it's bizarre. And that's what's interesting is the head of the Senate Leadership Fund, which is the big super PAC that spends the real money. They're the ones who are going to dump the $100 million, in the Maine race. The head of it said, we have an all-out assault on Graham Platner that is so aggressive that not only is he going to lose the election, he's going to be forced to leave the state. And of course, the response in New Hampshire was, oh crap, now we're going to be stuck with him too? Because we're the state where everybody comes to. So we have stupid Graham Platner pretending to be an oyster farmer, in Dover or whatever. Come on. So what are you guys hearing is on the horizon? And I'll tell you why I think it's interesting is to reach Maine, you're going to have to buy some Boston TV for the southern part. To reach Maine, you're going to buy TV in Maine that serves part of eastern New Hampshire. So we're not going to see a ton of the ads, but we're already seeing, the ads that are running some. And the more that Graham Platner is the face of the Democratic Party, the more that you independents are going to wonder, okay, I know I hate Trump, but do I really want weirdos like that with the Nazi tattoo in charge? So what do you think? What are voters going to be hearing about Graham Platner in the next few months? John?
Well, Michael, Jada Mills attempted see, I don't even call them attack ads. I call them truth ads. Yeah. She was just putting the truth out. People say, oh, that was an attack ad. No, she just said what he said. And there's a PAC up here now in Maine running, Platner's comments, a similar type of ad. And to be honest, it's not working, because his whole excuse is, I'm not that person anymore. I've changed. I'm different now. And, and maybe he is. I don't think he is. Common sense tells you that he's not, because, Tom hears me say it all the time. When people tell you who they are, believe them, believe who they, he's told you who he is, and people are just choosing not to believe him right now. But, here's the thing. The feds are coming to Maine. We know it. We've had, back channel conversations. We've asked, the feds to come up here. The feds are coming. They're going to expose the fraud. Republicans know that, Susan Collins, maybe she's not conservative enough for you, or maybe she's too liberal on this, and maybe she stood up to Trump. But at the end of the day, Susan Collins holds the checkbook of America. She's a chief, she's in charge of appropriations. She's a powerful person, and she's done a lot for everybody in Maine. She bought the fire truck that nobody could get bought. She equipped the police department. She's, got schools built. She's done infrastructure. You're going to give up that type of power and that type of, influence in DC and give it to a guy who wants to come and that tells you every day, I'm going there to burn it all down. But no, you're not, because it's real easy to say. It's real easy to say that when you're campaigning.
Right.
But Michael, the 100 senators, that's the most exclusive club in the world. It's the best job in the world because you really don't have to do much. And you've got a big, huge staff, and you've got this.
Right.
And more importantly, Trump even learned this during his first administration. Trump just assumed, hey, the Republicans are all going to have my back. No, they're not, because they're not. Whoever's in the majority, hey, oyster boy, go sit in the corner and shut up, because there's a different way we do things up here in DC. We're not a campaign ad, we're cutthroat up here and stuff like that. So you're going to lose that power that Collins has to elect this guy. It's okay. Maybe it sounds good or looks good, but in reality, Maine is old. Tom said it earlier. Maine's screwed because of this Maine care fraud. And if the feds come and pull all this money out, and then you lose Susan Collins in appropriations, Maine's getting nothing.
Yeah, but Tom Shattuck, what I'm hearing from John are the old arguments that people used to make back in the olden days of before 2015 and golden escalators. I mean, does anyone even vote on that? Aren't people just going to show, I'm here to show you that I hate Trump versus I'm here to show you that I'm terrified of the people that hate Trump? Isn't that the whole election?
I think that's very possible that that's the whole election, and it doesn't even matter. Exactly. I will say this, that we were talking, John, I, and the publisher Steve Robinson were talking last night, and we got whispers, without letting anything go, I'm going to go forbidden territory here, that there's information on this guy that is very counter to the narrative that he's putting out there right now. As a unrelated note, Tim Walz is coming to Portland today.
Yes.
Yes.
The poster boy of fraud.
Right.
And I know where you're going, Tom Shattuck, and not just because I'm a big fan of Broadway musicals. And I will say that Mark Halprin, an inside reporter, if there's ever been one, he says that there is, without being specific at all, just there is stuff coming on this guy, that the plane load of Oppo that's coming is going to be very brutal.
Yes.
But once again, back to do people care anymore? I mean, you think about Donald Trump. I mean, I remember when I grabbed her by the feline animal was like, holy, like the biggest thing. Or now that's like, that's like the name of a restaurant now, isn't it? I mean, I just like, no one even cares anymore. Is there anything that will cause the people who hate Trump to say, I want something other than the guy who promises me he hates Trump at least as much as I do?
That might be the problem. And so there's two things that Platner's got. He's got that, and he's also got the outsiders, the trillionaires, the oligarchs. And so you're whipping up two constituencies, and the oligarch constituency can't tell you what an oligarch is, but they know that they're supposed to hate it, and they hear it. There's a guy running for governor named Troy Jackson, who's running as an outsider, as a matter of fact, who says we need a change in Augusta. We need an outsider to go there and get rid of the oligarchs. He's been in the Maine Senate for 20 years, but he's running as an outsider. So they're seeing that this outsider thing might have them reach pay dirt. Right. But I do think that there's. We'll see. If it's all about Trump, and that's all that matters, because people love potential Trump assassins. So if that's where we are, if this is more of a psychological problem, then I don't think there's a smelling salt for it. It doesn't matter how big the ad buy is. We got
to wrap up. We're up against the clock, and of course, Shattuck, you're doing just the same lousy job managing the clock as you did when you did talk radio.
There was a clock?
Just 60 seconds, John Featherstone. Paul LePage, former governor, popular guy. Could he be the first Republican member of the House of Representatives from New England since, I think, 2014?
It's looking good, Michael. Governor LePage is still very popular. His district skews red. And Senator Baldacci, who is well-known senator here in Massachusetts is his primary opponent. He's also going up against the auditor of Maine, and you could say, well, you've got all this Maine care fraud, and you're the auditor. How'd you allow this to happen? So but Baldacci voted against a very important bill just this week to protect children and investigate DHS. So I think it gives LePage another thing to run on to say, hey, Baldacci doesn't even care about kids. 154 kids have died under the care of DHS in the last few years, and Baldacci voted against it. So it's looking good for LePage. The LePage, that from the past, he's not as fiery, but he's still pretty fiery. He was Trump before Trump was Trump. Sure. So he's still there. He's got a good team on the ground. The numbers look good, and it would be fascinating to have a congressman from Maine up here in the Northeast. Yeah.
You think he has a chance, Shattuck?
Oh, I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't see how a Trumpy candidate can do so, other than they know him. The state knows him already, and they know he wasn't Trump. But I think it's an uphill battle for him. I love the guy, man. We need more people like that in the world, people who say what they mean. But I have concerns.
Yeah. I mean, right now, the prognosis is every Republican who isn't in a solid seat loses, because that's the way the board is tilted. But this is the beginning of May. We've got all of May and June and July and August, September. There's always that possibility that Iran caves, gas drops to $1.99 a gallon. Trump is taking victory laps from Havana to Caracas to Tehran, and the AI is exploding, and it could be a totally different world, or it could be that Republican, it's just 2006 all over again, and that's that. Thank you so much, John Featherstone, with the Maine Wire, for joining us. Tom Shattuck, I don't know what you do and how you do it, but all I know is if they ever crack down on fraud, you're going straight to the slammer. That's all I got to say. Thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.